Why are we so anxious? How bad news, uncertainty, and world problems affect our mental health and what we can do about it. So, hello, a very warm welcome to my podcast, Don't Get a Therapist Yet. I welcome any new listeners to the podcast and any regulars. Very warm welcome back. If you're new, please subscribe. I want to get my message out. So today we are talking about a question many people are quietly asking themselves. Why are we so anxious? Not a bit stressed, not just busy, but anxious in that deep background way where your mind is ticking over from the moment you wake up, your body feels tense, and even when nothing is immediately going wrong in your life, you still feel as though something bad is about to happen. And to be honest, it's not hard to understand why. We are living in a time when the world can feel really unstable, expensive, frightening, and unpredictable. We are given a constant stream of bad news. We are told about wars, climate problems, political arguments, rising prices, economic uncertainty, job insecurity, and even now, threats to our holidays. We hear predictions, warnings, worst case scenarios all the time, and expert speculation. And much of it is delivered in a way that keeps our attention going by keeping us feeling alarmed. In the UK, the cost of living remains a huge emotional pressure. Food prices have risen sharply since the start of the cost of living crisis, and recent reporting has warned us that food prices could be around 50% higher by late 2026 compared with 2021 levels. In addition, the Bank of England has also projected further food inflation pressures This matters because food, energy and rent, they're not luxuries. They are necessities. And of course, young people are facing their own crisis. Official ONS figures show hundreds of thousands of young people aged 16 to 24 not in education, not in employment, or not training, with both young men and young women seeking increases in the unemployed since 2025. The Resolution Foundation has also warned that the UK has one of the highest rates of young adults not in work or study among wealthy European countries. How bad is that? Then, just to top it all, we have the summer holiday anxiety. So for many families, one holiday is the one thing they look forward to all year. It may be the one thing to switch off, the one thing to reconnect, the one thing to feel the sun on your face and relax. Yet even that can feel uncertain when there are warnings about possible travel disruption linked to wider global problems. The UK government and Civil Aviation Authority have recently discussed plans, and there is advice aimed at protecting summer holidays from disruption while acknowledging possible risks. Well, let's see how that goes, shall we? And then there is politics. Whatever your political views, many people now feel a lack of trust, a sense of questionable integrity, and a feeling that ordinary people have very little power to change things. Research suggests that in February 2026, that over 2/3 of Britons did not have confidence in the government's competency or integrity. And the YouGov polling around April 2026 showed very high levels of disapproval of the government's record. So, today, I want to talk about why this makes us anxious. Not because we're weak, not because we're even overacting, but because our brains and our bodies are responding to repeated signals of threat. And then we'll move on to therapy tools. We'll look at cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness, attentional training, ACT values, and the concept of gratitude. Not as fluffy ideas, but as really good, essential, practical ways of getting your mind back to when away from the world feeling noisy, uncertain, and frightening. So, we are being threaded with threat information. The human brain was not designed to receive global threats, updates, all day long. For most of human history, we dealt with the threats in front of us. The weather, food, shelter, relationships, illness, danger nearby. Now, through our phones, TVs, and social media feeds, our brains are exposed to war, economic collapse, climate fears, crime, political conflict, and human suffering from across the world, even before we've had our breakfast. Your nervous system does not always know the difference between there is danger in front of me, and I have just read 10 articles predicting danger. The body can react in the same way. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tighten. Your breathing becomes shallower. Your mind starts scanning for problems. You may feel restless, irritable, numb, angry, or exhausted. This is what happens when the threat system is repeatedly activated. And the problem, it's not only just bad news, it's the style of bad news. We are often not just told what has happened, we are told what might happen next. That's the problem. Inflation might rise. Food prices might get worse. Jobs might be harder to find. Flights might be cancelled. The economy might deteriorate. Politicians might not tell the truth. The climate might become more extreme. The future might become catastrophic, unaffordable. So I've emphasised the word might. The anxious brain hates the word might. Might leaves the mind in limbo. It creates uncertainty. And anxiety thrives on uncertainty. So why the worst case predictions hook the anxious brain? Anxiety is not random. It has a job to do to keep us safe. It helps us by preparing ourselves for danger. It says, look ahead, prepare, don't be caught out. Think of everything that could go wrong, stay alert. Now, in small doses, this can be useful. It can help us to plan, budget, check our travel insurance, save money, make sure we apply for proper jobs, vote, speak up for our rights, and take practical action. But the problem becomes a problem when the anxiety becomes excessive. The mind starts confusing worry with problem solving. Now, this is one of the most important things that CBT can help us with. Worry can make us feel productive because the mind is busy. But being busy mentally is not the same as being effective. You can spend 2 hours worrying about inflation and still have no clearer plan. You can spend the evening scrolling travel disruption stories and still have no more certainty about your flight. You can read political arguments for a whole hour and end up feeling more powerless than you feel informed. So worry gives us the illusion of control. It says, if I think about this enough again and again and again and again, that will make me feel safe. But that's not the case. Often, the more we worry, the less safe we feel. The emotional impact of inflation and money fear. Money anxiety is one of the most powerful forms of anxiety because it touches our survival system. When people worry about inflation, they're not just thinking about numbers on a chart. They are thinking, can I afford my food shop? Will my mortgage or rent go up? What if my bills increase again? What if my children need something and I can't provide it? What if I work hard and I still cannot make ends meet? What if my savings disappear? What if there is no way out? This is not just financial stress. This is emotional threat. And when prices rise, people often feel ashamed, even when the cause is out of their control. They may think, I should be managing better. I should have saved more. Other people seem to cope. I must be failing. CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, can challenge that. For example, getting a more balanced thought. An example could be, yes, I am facing real financial pressures in a difficult economic climate, but this is not a personal failure. I can focus on the parts I can influence, one step at a time. That thought does not magically pay the bills, but it can help with feelings of shame. And when you feel shame, everything feels worse. When you can reduce the shame, your worry can become problem solving. Young people, unemployment and loss of hope. One of the most worrying emotional themes at the moment is young people feeling that future is closing down. When young people struggle to find work, training, or affordable rent or mortgage, it actually reduces their financial independence. And this often creates a real sense of hopelessness. And hopelessness is just not laziness. It's often what happens when no effort can help. It does not seem to reward. You put in a load of effort, but you just don't get the reward. So therefore, a young person starts to think, well, what's the point? I can never afford a home of my own. I can never get that work experience because nobody will give me a job. I'm already behind. The world is broken before I have even started. And also parents can feel this too for their children. As parents, we worry about our children's futures. They worry about whether children will be able to cope. Will they be able to earn, study, rent, buy things, travel, or feel secure? So anxiety is often passed through the family, often silently, but it's still there. But from a therapy perspective, this is where we need both compassion and action. Compassion says, this is genuinely hard. Action says, what is the one small step I can make to make a difference? We cannot take into consideration the whole future. We cannot make a brilliant, perfect 5-year plan, but we can just work on one small step. That's one small step could be a CV update, a conversation with an employer, a small training course, Go on a walk to clear your head. Just one small job application. A call to someone you feel is supportive for you. Just a small routine to get you up in the morning. When the future feels so big, so overwhelming, so hopeless, so impossible, we need to shrink the task down. That is not giving up. That's how we build hope, one step at a time. The threat to summer holidays and the need to escape. Now, this may sound really small compared with war, inflation, or unemployment, but there is something really sad about the fear of losing a summer holiday. It can feel huge. Why? Because holidays are not just about luxury. For many people, they represent escape, rest, connection with your loved ones, building those family memories, and psychological recovery from the stress of work and life. So when someone says, I just need a break, they often mean, I need to stop feeling responsible for everything. I need to feel like myself again. I need my children to have something good to remember. I need to believe my life is more than work, bills, and bad news. So when even the holiday feels under threat, it can really touch something deep. So our minds say, is there nothing we can rely on? Can we not even have this? What if everything keeps getting worse? This is where the anxiety becomes global. One problem becomes a symbol of all problems. The cancelled flight is not just a cancelled flight. It becomes evidence that life is unstable. And cognitive behaviour therapy can help us separate the event from the meaning. So the event might be, there is some uncertainty around travel. The anxious meaning might be, nothing ever works out. We cannot look forward to anything because everything keeps going wrong. But a CBT perspective would be to have a more balanced thought. So, for example, yes, there may be travel uncertainty. I accept that. But what I can do is be very clear on what my rights are. I can check my insurance and I can check up plan B options. But I don't have to mentally cancel my joy before anything has happened. So far, if your holiday plans have not been cancelled, there is still hope. So do not mentally cancel your joy before life has actually cancelled the plan. Political language, mistrust and powerlessness. Another reason we feel anxious is that public language often feels really aggressive, blaming and untrustworthy. When politicians speak in a way that feels evasive or attacking, dismissive, or simply lacking integrity, people can feel powerless. Even if we vote, or even if we campaign, or complain, or speak up, it can still feel as if decisions are made elsewhere by people who really don't seem to care or don't seem to listen. So this creates a particular emotional state called learned helplessness. This is when people start to believe nothing I do matters because no one tells the truth. The system is too big. People like me have no power. What's the point? And when people feel powerless, they may either become even more anxious or just simply feeling more and more numb. Now, therapy does not ask us to pretend everything is fine. It asks us to separate what I cannot control from what I can. It cannot personally control global inflation. Nobody can. But I can review, for example, my spending. I can research, I can seek advice, I can reduce avoiding problems, and I can make a practical plan. Yes, I cannot control every politician. Who can? But I can vote, I can write, I can speak, I can support causes, I can have thoughtful conversations with colleagues and friends, and I can stay informed without drowning myself. I cannot control the news cycle. That's true. But I can control how often I expose my nervous system to it. I cannot control every future risk, but I can choose how I live today. This is not passive. This is being psychologically wise. So here comes the therapy. What can we do? Learning to work with anxious thoughts. Cognitive behavioural therapy helps us to understand the links between our thoughts, feelings, body sensations and behaviour. So a simple CBT cycle, I'll give you an example now. So start with the trigger. For example, you see a news headline about inflation. You then think everything is going to get out of control. The feeling is anxiety, dread, helplessness. Your body, you feel tight chest. Your thoughts are racing. You can't sleep. Behaviour, you do your doom scrolling on your mobile phone. You seek reassurance from other colleagues or friends. You don't open your letters. You avoid your bills. You start snapping at people that you love. And what happens then? You feel more anxious. So CBT can help us pause and ask, now, is this a thought, a prediction, or a fear? That question is really powerful. A fact might be prices have increased. A prediction might be inflation will get completely out of control. A fear might be I will not be able to cope. So, once we separate facts from predictions, we can respond differently. Try this as a CBT exercise. The 3-column worry check. Number 1, what am I worried about? Example, I'm worried prices will rise and I will not cope. 2, what is within my control? Example, I can review my budget, I can check my direct debits, I can reduce one avoidable expense, I can ask for advice, I can plan meals, I can talk to my family or my loved ones. 3, what is outside my control? Example, global markets, government decisions, future inflation rates, media speculation. And then ask, what is one helpful action I can take today? Not 20 actions, just the one. So CBT reduces anxiety by moving us from rumination into realistic action. Research on CBT for chronic worry often focuses on the intolerance of uncertainty, the difficulty of coping without not knowing. Studies suggest that if you can reduce the intolerance of uncertainty, this can help to reduce worry. And newer work continues to explore behavioural experiments as a way of helping people learn that uncertainty can be tolerated. Stop feeding the worry system. Now, this may sound very simple, but I know it's not that easy. You cannot just calm your nervous system while repeatedly feeding it the threats of today. So if you wake up and immediately check the news, your brain starts the day in danger mode. If you scroll before bed, your mind carries uncertainty into sleep. If you watch endless speculation, your body reacts as if you need to prepare for impact. So the question is not, should I be informed? Of course, we do need to be informed. But the better question to ask yourself is, how can I be informed without being overwhelmed? So here are some examples. Maybe check the news once or twice a day from a reliable source. Maybe avoid news first thing in the morning and last thing at night. Another idea is, don't read 10 versions of the same frightening story. Another idea is, notice when you've moved from information into emotional overwhelm. Ask yourself, is this helping me act, or is this keeping me stuck? So the last question is the key thing. Ask yourself, am I going to act, or am I going to be stuck? And what you need to do is to learn to act. Mindfulness, coming back to now. Mindfulness is not pretending the world is fine. It's not a woo-woo. It's an evidence-based, very researched practice that can help you in so many different ways. It's about learning to come back to the present moment instead of living in constantly imagined future disasters. So anxiety makes us go into what if. What if prices rise? What if I lose my job? What if my child cannot find work? What if my flight is cancelled? What if politicians cannot be trusted? What if things get worse? Mindfulness says, come back to the breath. Come back to this room. Come back to this cup of tea. Come back to your feet on the floor. Come back to the next wise action. Mindfulness has evidence for reducing anxiety, including worry, and reviews have been found to be beneficial for anxiety, depression, and stress. It's well worth finding out a little bit more about mindfulness. It's such a good practice. Another technique is a 60-second grounding pause. So you can try this now or later if you prefer. Just put both feet on the floor. Notice the contact between your feet and the ground. Relax your shoulders. Take in a slow, gentle breath and breathe out for a little bit longer. Now, name 3 things you can see, 2 things you can hear, and 1 thing you can feel in your body. Then say to yourself, in this moment, I am here. I do not have to solve my whole life in the next 60 seconds. That's a simple mindfulness practice, not dramatic, not mystical, just returning back to the present moment. Attentional training. Choose where the mind goes. So we already have spoken about anxiety trains our attention to scan for threat. It's like having a mental security camera that's always looking for danger. The anxious mind says, what's wrong? What could go wrong? What have I missed? What should I worry about next? Attentional training helps us to practice moving attention deliberately, if I can say the word. This is important because attention is like a spotlight. whatever it rests on becomes bigger in our mind. So if your attention is on threat all day long, threat becomes your world. But if your attention can move to the body, the breath, the room, a task, something you value, a person, something you notice, a moment of beauty, your nervous system gets more flexibility. So try this attention switching exercise. For 30 seconds, focus on sounds around the room. Now switch to sounds outside the room. Now switch to the feeling of your hands. Now switch to your breathing. Now switch to something you can see. This teaches the brain, I can move my attention. I am not trapped inside worry. You're not trying to force anxiety away. You are training the mind to become less dominated by it. ACT. Living by values when the world feels uncertain. ACT stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. One of the central ideas in ACT is we may not be able to control all our thoughts and feelings, but we can choose actions that move us forward towards a values-based living. So ACT doesn't say stop feeling anxious. It says, can you accept anxiety while still living in a way that is important to you? Now, this can be really powerful in uncertain times, because if we wait for the world to feel safe before we live well, we may spend years on hold. So ACT asks, what kind of person do I want to be in this situation? What matters to me today? What values do I want to stand for? And what is one small action I can take that supports these values? Examples of values could be being kind, being courageous, spending time with my family, focusing on my health, being honest, learning and being curious about the world, having faith, being creative, focus on developing a stable life, or focusing on connecting with people, or focusing on feeling more free, or learning to be compassionate towards myself and others. So, for example, if the news is frightening, and it usually is, you might value just being steady for today. If you find your money is tight, your value might be responsibility without attacking yourself. If politics feels toxic, your value might be honesty. If young people feel hopeless, your value might be to encourage them. If the future feels uncertain, your value might be practicing really being in the here and now. Research suggests that ACT can reduce psychological distress and improve psychological flexibility, emotional regulation, and life satisfaction. And what psychological flexibility is the ability to stay present and to take action which is important and meaningful to you. As we described a minute ago, doing things that are important to you. Even if we have difficult thoughts and feelings, we still carry on acting. Our life is full of our values, what meaning we give to our life. So the world might be going crazy, but I choose to be kind. The world is unstable, but I'm going to do my best to give the best upbringing to my children. Yeah, I might have a flight cancelled, but I'm going to make sure that I believe in rest and joy and making memories. And whatever happens, I'm going to focus on rest and joy and making memories with my family. So another example of values is get up in the mornings and just ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Even if I feel anxious, then just choose one small action. So if you value connection, maybe WhatsApp somebody you care about, send them a lovely message. If your value is health, then maybe do some exercise, take a brisk 10-minute walk, for example. If your value is courage, maybe open that brown envelope you've been dreading and you've been avoiding opening for that last week. If you value being kind, start by being kind to yourself and encourage yourself. Be your own best friend. I love that phrase. If you think learning is important, then maybe you could read a book, go on a course, read a podcast, listen to a podcast. Just take one opportunity for learning. That's very good for your brain. If your value is gratitude, just spend some time looking on one small thing that you feel is good and important in your life. We can't get away from uncertainty. We have to work towards accepting certainty, but we can actually learn to live our life in spite of uncertainty. Gratitude, not denial, but actually focusing on hope. I often think gratitude is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean other people have it worse, to stop complaining. That is not gratitude. That is emotional invalidation. Real gratitude says, this is hard, but there is still something here worth noticing. And that tiny little word is so important. Life is expensive, but I'm grateful that I have food in front of me. The world feels very unstable, but I'm grateful for the person I choose to be each day. Yes, I'm feeling anxious, but I just noticed the beauty of a tree in blossom. Yep, I am worried about the future, but I can still sit here and just really savor and enjoy this cup of tea. There was a systematic review of gratitude interventions, and they found they were linked with better mental health, higher life satisfaction, and fewer symptoms of anxiety and depression. Also, another study found that gratitude interventions did produce small increases in well-being. Small daily practices can matter because anxiety is often built through repetition. So if we repeatedly scan for threat, threat grows. If we repeatedly notice what is steady, kind, beautiful, or meaningful, hope is there instead. So, a gratitude practice. 3 ordinary things. So one suggestion is at the end of the day, write down one thing I appreciated, one person or one moment or one comfort I am thankful for. One thing I did today that helped me to cope. Just keep it very simple. It could be a warm shower, a kind message from someone, a funny video, a nice warm bed, a cup of tea, a dog showing its love for us, or a cat, a child laughing, a moment of stillness, a bill that I've paid, a short walk outside, simply breathing. This is not pretending life is easy. It is simply not letting fear become the only story. So, here is an example of a practical daily plan for anxious times. Morning. Protect the first 10 minutes. Before checking the news, do one grounding action. Breathe, stretch, drink water, open a window, step outside, or pray or meditate, journal or simply sit quietly. Tell your brain, I will meet the day before I meet the headlines. Midday, one practical action. Choose one thing within your control. Check a bill, send an email, make a meal plan, apply for one job, book an appointment, go for a walk, speak to someone who you feel is supportive towards you. Action helps us to feel more in control. Afternoon, attention reset. So you can practice the attention switching exercise. Sounds outside, sounds inside. Focus on your hands, then focus on your breath, focus on what you see. This trains your mind not to stay glued to threat. Evening. Develop a boundary around the news. Make sure you avoid doomscrolling before bed. Your brain cannot digest global uncertainty and then finally fall calmly asleep. It just doesn't happen. This is like drinking a strong cup of coffee and then asking your body to relax. It doesn't happen. Nighttime. Gratitude and values. Ask yourself, what mattered today? What did I do that reflected my personal values? What am I grateful for, however small? End the day by reminding your brain that danger is not the whole picture. So, if you're anxious at the moment, I want you to hear this. It does not mean you're broken. You're just simply human, living in a world that's giving your nervous system an awful lot to process. Yes, you're right. There are real pressures. There are real uncertainties. The financial worries are real. There are real concerns about young people, work, politics, war, climate change, and the future. These techniques don't ask us to deny reality. It just helps us to stop being so overwhelmed by it. We can care without being overwhelmed. We can be informed without being flooded with bad news. We can plan without catastrophizing. We can feel anxious without letting our anxiety run our entire life. We can live by our values, even in these terribly uncertain times. We can practice gratitude. It's so good for our health and well-being. Not because everything is fine and dandy, but because we need hope. So, final thoughts. If you like this podcast or this video, whatever you're watching or listening to, please subscribe to our channel. It really helps to develop the audience, and it's so important to get this message out. Also, please note that there is an ebook that you can download if you go to the show notes. It's all there. And these are really free resources just to help to keep you more grounded. So, we are exposed to more threat, more uncertainty, more speculation, more and more worst case scenarios that our nervous systems were ever designed to hold. But there is something we can do. We can be aware of the worry cycle. We can separate facts from fears. We can work on reducing our doomscrolling one small step at a time. We can focus on taking one practical action. We can train our attention. We can keep coming back to the present moment rather than all the what if thoughts. We can live by what's important to us, our meaning, our values. We can improve our well-being simply by using gratitude practices. And that's where hope begins. Not pretending everything is okay, but in saying, right here, right now, I can choose my next wise step. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and get your free ebook download. And I look forward to hearing from you and hope you listen to the next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.